Marcus Wright checked his watch as he guided his family through the busy spaceport terminal. The massive, curved windows revealed countless ships launching into the orange evening sky, their trails forming delicate patterns against the approaching night. "We should hurry," said his wife Zoe, elegant in her Navy travel suit. "They start boarding in 10 minutes. Their teenage children, the twins Elijah and Maya, walked slightly ahead, excitement evident in their steps. This vacation to the Jupiter colonies had been postponed 3 times due to Marcus's busy schedule. As the founder of Wright Aerospace Innovations, Marcus rarely had time for family trips. "I still can't believe we're finally going," Maya said, her eyes bright with anticipation. At 16, she already showed promise as an engineer like her father, often spending hours in his home workshop designing improvements to everyday devices. Elijah nodded in agreement. "Uncle Paul says the floating gardens are incredible. You can actually swim through them while the plants grow all around you." The family reached the boarding gate for the luxury interstellar cruiser Celestial Path, known as the finest vessel operating in the inner solar system. Marcus had purchased first-class tickets months ago, wanting to make this trip special after so many cancellations. The gate attendant smiled as she scanned their boarding passes. "Welcome to Galactic Voyager Lines. You're in Suite 12A, our Legacy section. Enjoy your journey to the Jupiter colonies." Once aboard the gleaming ship, a young man in a crisp uniform directed them to an elevator that would take them to the first-class level. The Celestial Path was enormous, capable of carrying 3,000 passengers in comfort across the solar system. The first-class cabin exceeded even their expectations. The walls featured actual windows rather than screens, offering a true view of space. The furniture was made of real wood, a luxury in space travel where every ounce mattered. "Our suite is this way," Marcus said, consulting the ship map on his personal device. They walked down the wide corridor, other well-dressed passengers nodding politely as they passed. Suite 12A was at the end of the hall. When the door slid open, Maya gasped. The family suite was larger than many apartments, with separate sleeping areas, a common room with a spectacular viewing window, and even a small kitchenette. "This is amazing, Dad," Elijah said, immediately moving to the window. "We can see the whole spaceport from here." The family settled in, placing their bags in the storage compartments. Zoe sat on one of the plush couches and sighed with contentment. 20 minutes until departure," she said. "I think this is the first time we've ever been early for anything." Marcus laughed. "I promised no work on this trip, and I meant it." He joined her on the couch, taking her hand. 2 weeks of family time, no interruptions. Their peaceful moment was cut short when the suite door chimed. Marcus pressed the button to open it, revealing a flight attendant with short blonde hair and a tight smile. "Good evening," the man said, his eyes scanning the room. His name badge read, Kevin Barnes. "Good evening," Marcus replied. "Is there something we can help you with?" Kevin cleared his throat. "I need to verify your boarding passes, please." Marcus found this odd since they had already been scanned twice, but he reached for his device and pulled up the family's passes. "Here you go." Kevin studied them longer than necessary. "And these are definitely your passes? For Suite 12A? Zoe joined her husband at the door. "Yes, we booked months ago. Is there a problem?" Kevin handed the device back. "There seems to be a system error. This suite is usually reserved for our platinum members." "We don't have a membership," Marcus explained calmly. "We simply purchased first-class tickets." Kevin's smile grew more strained. "Sir, these premium suites are typically reserved for our established clientele. Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding." Maya and Elijah had stopped exploring the suite and now watched the exchange from across the room. "There's no misunderstanding," Marcus said, his voice still pleasant but firm. "We have valid tickets for this suite." Kevin glanced past them at the luggage and the teenagers. "I'll need to check with my supervisor. One moment." As Kevin stepped away to use his communication device, Zoe whispered to Marcus, "What's happening?" "I'm not sure," he replied quietly. Kevin returned a minute later. "My supervisor has confirmed there appears to be an error in the system. We'll need to relocate you to economy class, or you can choose to disembark and receive a full refund." Marcus frowned. "That makes no sense. We have confirmed reservations for this suite. I'm sorry, sir, but these are the options available. Kevin's voice had hardened. If you refuse to comply, I'll need to call security. Other passengers in nearby suites had begun to notice the conversation. A few watched openly from their doorways. This is ridiculous, Zoe said. We paid for these tickets. We're not giving up our suite because of a supposed system error. Kevin raised an eyebrow. Ma'am, I'm simply following protocol. Now, will you be relocating to economy or disembarking? Marcus took a deep breath. I'd like to speak with the captain. The captain is preparing for departure and cannot be disturbed. Please make your decision now. The twins had moved closer to their parents, confusion and embarrassment on their faces. Dad? Maya whispered. What's going on? Before Marcus could answer, Kevin tapped his communication device again. Security to Suite 12A, please. Within minutes, 2 security officers arrived. By now, a small crowd had gathered in the hallway watching the scene unfold. Sir, one of the officers said to Marcus, we need you and your family to come with us. Marcus looked at his wife and children, seeing the hurt in their eyes. He had wanted this trip to be perfect. Now they were being treated like criminals. Fine, he said finally. We'll disembark, but I want it noted that we're doing so under protest. As the Wright family collected their bags, whispers filled the corridor. Most passengers avoided eye contact, looking uncomfortable but saying nothing. The security officers escorted them back through the ship to the exit, where they were met by a spaceport official. Your refund will be processed within 3 business days, Kevin said, not quite meeting their eyes as they stepped off the vessel. What Kevin didn't know, what none of them knew, was exactly who they had just removed from the celestial path, and very soon they would all find out. Marcus Wright stood with his family in the busy spaceport terminal, watching through the large windows as the celestial path prepared for departure. His children's faces showed their disappointment. Maya wiped a tear from her cheek while Elijah kicked absently at his travel bag. I'm sorry, Marcus said, placing his hands on their shoulders. This isn't how our vacation was supposed to start. Zoe squeezed her husband's arm. It's not your fault, Marcus. But Marcus felt responsible. He had promised his family this trip for months. Now they stood humiliated, forced off a ship despite having proper tickets and reservations. Dad, why did they make us leave? Maya asked, her voice small. We didn't do anything wrong. Marcus chose his words carefully. Sometimes people make judgments based on how others look, not who they really are. That's not fair, Elijah said, anger creeping into his voice. No, it's not, Marcus agreed. But how we respond to unfairness matters more than the unfairness itself. Zoe pulled out her personal device. I'm going to contact Patricia right now. Marcus nodded. Patricia Summers was the chief executive officer of Galactic Voyager Line's operations division. 3 years ago, when Marcus had revolutionized space travel with his Wright gravitational stabilizers, Patricia had been one of the first executives to recognize their potential. The stabilizers made space travel safer and reduced fuel costs by 60%. This technology had transformed Marcus from a brilliant engineer into one of the wealthiest people in the solar system. What flight attendant? Kevin Barnes didn't know, what almost no one knew yet, was that Wright Aerospace Innovations had quietly purchased a controlling stake in Galactic Voyager Lines just 2 months ago. The acquisition hadn't been announced publicly. Marcus and Zoe had planned to review the company's operations as regular passengers before making any changes. While Zoe spoke quietly into her device, Marcus gathered the family's bags. We'll find another way to get to Jupiter. This won't ruin our vacation. But Zoe had finished her call and was now smiling. Actually, we're not going anywhere just yet. Patricia is on her way. She wants us to wait here. 20 minutes later, Patricia Summers hurried across the terminal, her red business suit standing out among the travelers. She was a tall woman, with short gray hair and a determined expression. Marcus, Zoe, she said, embracing them both. I am absolutely horrified by what happened. Please accept my deepest apologies. She turned to the twins and shook their hands formally. Maya, Elijah, I'm Patricia Summers. I work for your parents, though they were kind enough to keep me on after they bought the company. The twins looked at their parents in surprise. You bought the company? Elijah asked. The whole ship? Marcus nodded. Not just the ship. The entire Galactic Voyager lines. We were going to tell you once we were on our way. Patricia checked her device. The celestial path is still here. They're having trouble with one of the gravity stabilizers. The old model, not yours, Marcus. They've delayed departure for 40 minutes. Zoe raised an eyebrow. How convenient. Patricia smiled. Very convenient indeed. Now, shall we go back on board? The family followed Patricia through a private entrance reserved for company executives. This time, they rode a different elevator to the first-class level. As they approached Suite 12A, they found Kevin Barnes standing outside with an older man in a senior crew uniform. Kevin's face went pale when he saw them returning with Patricia Summers. He recognized her immediately. Her picture appeared in all company communications. The older man stepped forward. Mr. and Mrs. Wright, I'm Chief Steward Gregory Duncan. I approved Mr. Barnes's decision earlier based on his report. I take full responsibility for this terrible mistake. Patricia's voice was ice cold. It wasn't a mistake, Gregory. I've reviewed the communications. Kevin told you he had unexpected guests in Suite 12A who didn't seem to belong there. You told him to handle it according to protocol. But there is no protocol for removing passengers with valid tickets from their assigned seats. Kevin stared at the floor, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Gregory, Kevin, I'd like to introduce you to Marcus Wright. Patricia continued. 3 years ago, Mr. Wright invented the gravitational stabilizers that revolutionized space travel. 2 months ago, his company acquired a controlling interest in Galactic Voyager lines. He is effectively your employer. The color drained from both men's faces. And this is Zoe Wright, Chief Communications Officer of Wright Aerospace Innovations and co-owner of this company. These are their children, Maya and Elijah. Kevin finally looked up, horror in his eyes. Sir, ma'am, I had no idea. Marcus raised his hand, stopping Kevin's words. That's precisely the problem. You shouldn't need to know who someone is to treat them with basic respect. Patricia opened the door to Suite 12A. Your suite is ready for you. Your luggage has been retrieved. The captain would like to personally welcome you aboard once you're settled. As the family entered their suite again, Zoe turned back to Patricia. We need to see all records of similar incidents across the fleet, and I want to know how widespread this problem is. Patricia nodded grimly. Already working on it. Initial reports suggest this isn't an isolated incident. Once they were alone in the suite, Maya looked at her father. Are you going to fire those men, Dad? Marcus sat heavily on the couch. What do you think I should do? Elijah spoke up. They were wrong, but firing them doesn't fix the bigger problem, does it? Zoe smiled at her son. You're right. This is about more than 2 employees. It's about a culture that allows this to happen. Marcus nodded slowly, an idea forming. What if we could turn this negative experience into something positive? Something that could change not just Galactic Voyager lines, but perhaps the entire industry? The ship's announcement system chimed softly. Attention passengers, this is Captain Laura Bennett. We are cleared for departure to the Jupiter colonies. Our estimated travel time is 3 days, 11 hours. Thank you for choosing Galactic Voyager lines. As the massive engines hummed to life, the Wright family felt the gentle pull of acceleration. Their vacation was finally beginning, but all of them knew that something more important had started as well. The next morning, Marcus Wright woke early in Suite 12A. The large window showed the deep blackness of space, dotted with countless stars. Earth was now just a bright blue dot behind them. Marcus sat quietly, watching his family sleep. Yesterday's events still troubled him. The look on Maya's face when they had been escorted off the ship had been heartbreaking. A soft chime from his personal device broke the silence. It was a message from Patricia Summers requesting a meeting at his convenience. Marcus replied that he would meet her in 1 hour. Zoe stirred and opened her eyes. Good morning, she said softly. How did you sleep? Not well, Marcus admitted. I keep thinking about what happened. Zoe sat up. Me too. But now we have a chance to do something about it. After breakfast in their suite, Marcus left to meet Patricia while Zoe took the twins to explore the ship's observatory deck. When Marcus arrived at the executive conference room, he found Patricia waiting with several data tablets laid out on the table. "Good morning, Marcus," Patricia said. "Thank you for coming. I've been reviewing our records as Zoe requested." Her face looked grim. Marcus sat down. "What did you find?" "In the past year alone, we've had 37 reported incidents where passengers were asked to move from their assigned seats or were removed from flights without proper cause," Patricia explained. "When I looked at who these passengers were," she paused, sliding a tablet toward him. Marcus studied the data. The pattern was clear. Most of the affected passengers were people of color or individuals with foreign-sounding names. "This isn't random," he said quietly. "No," Patricia agreed. "It's not. And these are just the reported incidents. Many passengers probably never filed complaints." Marcus nodded slowly. "What about Kevin Barnes and Gregory Duncan specifically?" Patricia pulled up their records. "Kevin has been involved in 12 similar incidents in the 3 years he's worked for us. Gregory has approved questionable removals at least 20 times." "And no one noticed this pattern?" Marcus asked. Patricia looked embarrassed. "The complaints were handled individually by different departments. No one was looking at the big picture. That's on me. I should have implemented better oversight." Marcus stood and walked to the window. The stars streaked by as the ship traveled at near light speed. "I want to meet with them," he said finally. "Both of them. And I want the captain there too." An hour later, Kevin Barnes and Gregory Duncan sat nervously in the conference room. Captain Laura Bennett, a stern woman with 30 years of space flight experience, joined them. Marcus and Patricia sat across the table. "Gentlemen," Marcus began, "I've reviewed your service records." Kevin looked like he might be sick. Gregory stared straight ahead, his face rigid. "Before yesterday, did either of you know who I was?" Marcus asked. Both men shook their heads. "But you made assumptions about me and my family based on how we look," Marcus continued. "Those assumptions led you to treat us differently than you would have treated other passengers with the same tickets." "Sir," Gregory said stiffly, "we were simply following—" "There was no protocol being followed," Captain Bennett interrupted sharply. "I've reviewed the incident myself. You both violated company policy and basic human decency." Kevin's eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Wright, I know an apology isn't enough, but I am truly sorry." Marcus studied the young man. "Why did you do it, Kevin? What made you decide my family didn't belong in that suite?" Kevin struggled to find words. I don't know. When I saw you, I assumed you were in the wrong place." "Because of how we look," Marcus finished for him. Kevin nodded miserably. Gregory cleared his throat. "Mr. Wright, if you want our resignations—" "I haven't decided what I want yet," Marcus cut in. "But first I want to understand why this keeps happening on our ships." The room fell silent at his use of "our ships." The reality of the ownership change was still sinking in for everyone. Captain Bennett spoke up. "If I may, Mr. Wright, I believe part of the problem is in our training, or rather the lack of proper training." Marcus turned to her. "Go on." "Our staff receives extensive training on safety procedures, customer service protocols, and emergency responses," Bennett explained. "But we have no formal training about unconscious bias or cultural sensitivity." Patricia made notes on her tablet. "That's an excellent point, Captain." Marcus thought for a moment. "Kevin, Gregory, I have a question for both of you. If I offered you a chance to keep your jobs, but required you to help fix this problem, would you be willing?" The men looked surprised. "Yes, sir," Kevin said quickly. "Absolutely." Gregory nodded slowly. "I would, Mr. Wright." "Good," Marcus said, "because firing you would be easy, but it wouldn't solve anything. The next person hired might have the same biases. What we need is systematic change." Patricia leaned forward. "What are you thinking, Marcus?" I'm thinking of creating a company-wide training program, one that addresses not just explicit bias but the unconscious assumptions we all make. Marcus pointed at Kevin and Gregory, and I want these two to help develop it, based on what they've learned from this experience. Captain Bennett looked impressed. That's not what I expected. Sometimes the people who have made mistakes have the clearest understanding of what needs to change, Marcus said. Of course, this will only be part of their jobs. They'll still have plenty of time serving drinks in economy class for the next year. Kevin and Gregory exchanged glances, realizing this was both an opportunity and a demotion. There's something else, Marcus continued. I want a complete audit of all passenger removal incidents from the past 5 years. I want to know who was affected and how the company responded. And I want personal apologies sent to everyone who was mistreated, along with lifetime travel vouchers. Patricia made more notes. I'll start that process immediately. One last thing, Marcus said. Tomorrow I'll be addressing the entire crew about the changes coming to Galactic Voyager lines, not just to our policies, but to our technology. Technology? Captain Bennett asked. Marcus smiled for the first time since entering the room. My right gravitational stabilizers will be installed across the entire fleet. But that's just the beginning. We're going to make space travel more accessible to everyone. As the meeting ended, Marcus felt a sense of purpose growing within him. What had started as a simple family vacation was becoming something much more important. He couldn't wait to tell Zoe and the twins about his plans. Marcus found his family in the ship's main observation lounge. The curved glass ceiling revealed the vastness of space above them. Maya and Elijah were using the interactive display to identify distant star systems. Zoe sat nearby, working on her personal device. There you are, Zoe said, looking up. How did your meeting go? Marcus sat beside her. Very productive. Patricia showed me the data. This wasn't an isolated incident. He explained what he had learned about the pattern of passenger removals and his plan for addressing the issue. The twins stopped their stargazing and joined their parents. You're not firing them? Elijah asked, surprised. No, Marcus replied. I'm giving them a chance to help fix the problem. Maya considered this. So they'll help make the training program, but they also get demoted? Marcus nodded. Actions have consequences, but people can also learn and grow. Zoe smiled at her husband. I think that's a wise decision. There's more, Marcus said. I'm going to address the entire crew tomorrow about our plans for the company. Our plans? Zoe raised an eyebrow. You mean the technology implementation? That, and more. Marcus pulled out his device and showed them what he had been working on. I want to create a new division focused on expanding access to space travel for underrepresented communities. Zoe's eyes lit up. Like the mentorship program we talked about last year? Exactly, Marcus said, but bigger. Much bigger. Maya leaned forward. Can we help? Elijah and I have some ideas. Marcus looked at his children with pride. I was hoping you'd say that. The next morning, the main auditorium of the Celestial Path was filled to capacity. Every crew member not on essential duty had gathered to hear from the ship's new owner. Captain Bennett stood at the front, introducing Marcus to the assembled crew. Many of you have heard about the incident that occurred during boarding, Bennett said. What you may not know is that the passenger involved was Marcus Wright, the inventor of the Wright gravitational stabilizers, and the new majority owner of Galactic Voyager lines. A murmur ran through the crowd. Marcus stepped forward to the podium. Good morning, he began. I'm not here to complain about what happened to my family. I'm here to talk about how we can do better, not just for passengers like me, but for everyone who travels with us. Marcus activated the large screen behind him, showing an image of Earth. When humans first ventured into space, it was the privilege of a select few. Government astronauts, then wealthy tourists. Even today, when space travel is common, it remains inaccessible to many communities. He advanced to the next image, showing his gravitational stabilizer technology. My invention made space travel 60% more fuel efficient. That should have made it more affordable for everyone. But that hasn't happened yet. The savings have increased profits without lowering ticket prices. Several executives in the front row shifted uncomfortably. Today, I'm announcing that will change. Effective immediately, Galactic Voyager Lines will reduce all ticket prices by 30%. Gasps and whispers filled the room. Patricia Summers, sitting in the front row, nodded in approval. That's just the beginning, Marcus continued. We're creating a new division called Space for All. This initiative will provide scholarships for young people from underrepresented communities to train for careers in space travel. It will also fund research into making space travel even more affordable. The crew applauded politely, though some still looked confused about why the new owner was focusing on this. You might wonder why this matters to me, Marcus said, seeming to read their thoughts. Let me tell you a story. When I was 10 years old, I told my teacher I wanted to be a space engineer. She laughed and suggested I consider more realistic goals. When I was in college, a professor told me people like me didn't belong in advanced physics. When I applied for my first job, I was turned down despite having the highest test scores. Marcus paused, letting his words sink in. Each time, someone decided who I was based on how I looked, not what I could do. Each time I had to work harder than everyone else just to get the same opportunities. What happened on the ship yesterday was nothing new for my family or for many other families. The room had grown very quiet. But here's what makes this time different. Now I'm in a position to do something about it. Not just for myself, but for everyone who has ever been told they don't belong. Marcus advanced to the next slide, which showed the new training program outline. Starting next week, every employee of Galactic Voyager Lines will participate in our new inclusion training program. This isn't about making anyone feel guilty. It's about making everyone feel welcome. He gestured to Kevin and Gregory, who sat nervously in the second row. Flight attendant Kevin Barnes and Chief Steward Gregory Duncan will be helping to develop this program. They made mistakes, as we all do. Now they're part of the solution. Kevin looked surprised to be mentioned by name but nodded his commitment. Finally, Marcus said, I want to introduce you to the future of our company. Maya and Elijah walked onto the stage. Though clearly nervous, they stood tall beside their father. These are my children, Maya and Elijah. Maya is already an accomplished engineer at 16. Elijah has been designing virtual space environments since he was 12. They represent the next generation of space innovation. Maya stepped up to the microphone. My brother and I are starting a youth ambassador program. We want to connect with young people who think space careers are out of reach and show them that's not true. Elijah added, We'll be visiting schools and communities where space careers aren't often discussed. If you'd like to volunteer as a mentor, we'd love your help. The applause was genuine this time. As Marcus looked out at the crew, he saw a mixture of reactions, some enthusiasm, some uncertainty, some resistance. Change wouldn't happen overnight, but it would happen. After the presentation, Captain Bennett approached the family. That was quite a speech, she said to Marcus. You've given us a lot to think about, and a lot to do, Zoe added with a smile. Bennett nodded. Indeed, but it's long overdue. She turned to the twins. Your youth program is an excellent idea. The crew quarters are already buzzing with talk about it. As they walked back to their suite, Marcus felt lighter than he had in days. What had started as an upsetting incident was transforming into something powerful and positive. The real work was just beginning. 3 years passed quickly. Marcus stood at the massive viewing window of the Jupiter colony's main terminal, watching as a sleek new spacecraft approached the docking bay. The vessel gleamed in the distant sunlight, its design unlike any other ship in space. This was the Unity, the newest addition to the Galactic Voyager fleet and the first ship built entirely with right technology from the ground up. It's beautiful, Zoe said, joining her husband at the window. She slipped her hand into his. Hard to believe how much has changed since that day. Marcus nodded. The incident on the celestial path had sparked a transformation, not just for Galactic Voyager Lines, but for the entire space industry. Their Space for All initiative had grown beyond anything they had imagined. "Mom! Dad!" Maya called, hurrying across the terminal. At 19, she had grown into a confident young woman. She now served as the lead engineer for youth programs at Wright Aerospace. "They're about to dock. We should get to the welcome area." The family made their way to the arrival section where a small crowd had gathered. Many wore the uniforms of Galactic Voyager lines, but there were also students from the Space for All Academy, media representatives, and colony officials. "There's Patricia," Zoe said, waving to Patricia Summers, who had become a close friend and ally over the past 3 years. Patricia had championed every new initiative, often fighting against board members who resisted change. "Is Elijah nervous?" Patricia asked as she joined them. Marcus laughed. "He says he's not, but he called 3 times during the final approach." Elijah had trained as a pilot and at 19 had become the youngest certified interstellar captain in history. Today marked his first official flight as the commander of Unity, the ship he had helped design. A soft chime announced the successful docking of the Unity. The crowd grew quiet with anticipation. This was more than just a new ship arrival. It was a symbol of what could be accomplished when barriers were removed. The airlock doors slid open. Elijah Wright stepped through first, wearing his captain's uniform with pride. Behind him came his diverse crew, each selected not just for their skills but for their commitment to the new vision of space travel. Marcus felt his chest tighten with emotion as he watched his son shake hands with the Jupiter colony governor. Zoe squeezed his hand, her eyes also shining with pride. After the formal greetings, Elijah approached his family. "Well, what do you think of her?" he asked, gesturing back toward his ship. "She's perfect," Maya said. "Did the new stabilizer configuration perform as expected?" "Even better," Elijah replied. "Fuel consumption was 12% lower than projected." As the crowd began to disperse, Marcus noticed a familiar face among the crew. Kevin Barnes, now older and more serious, stood quietly to the side. These days, Kevin served as the lead trainer for the company's inclusion program, which had become a model for other corporations throughout the solar system. When Kevin saw Marcus looking his way, he approached the family. "Mr. Wright," he said, offering his hand. "It's good to see you again." Marcus shook it warmly. "Kevin, I heard you were assigned to the Unity. How was the journey?" "Smooth," Kevin replied. "Your son is an excellent captain." There was an ease between them now that would have seemed impossible 3 years ago. Kevin had transformed his mistake into a mission, becoming one of the most effective advocates for change within the company. "I had a special passenger on this trip," Kevin continued. "A young woman who received one of the first Space for All scholarships. It was her first time leaving Earth." "How did she find it?" Zoe asked. Kevin smiled. "She cried when she saw Jupiter. Said she never imagined someone like her would get to see such a sight. She wants to be an astrobiologist." Maya's face lit up. "Perfect. We need more researchers for the Europa project." The main screens around the terminal suddenly activated, showing the company logo followed by a live broadcast from Earth. Gregory Duncan, now the Director of Community Outreach, appeared on screen. "Greetings to the Unity crew and the Jupiter colony," he began. "Today we celebrate not just the arrival of a new ship, but the continuation of a journey that began 3 years ago with a single family's experience." The screen split to show images from Space for All programs across the solar system. Classrooms filled with eager students, young engineers working on new technologies, communities gathering to watch launches together. Since the Wright family's investment in making space accessible to all, more than 10,000 young people from historically underrepresented communities have entered space-related careers. Our passenger diversity has increased by 70%, and our crew now represents over 60 different Earth cultures. Marcus listened, amazed at what had grown from that difficult day on the celestial path. What could have remained a painful memory had instead sparked a movement. The ceremony continued with speeches and presentations, but later that evening, the Wright family gathered privately in the observation dome of the colony. Jupiter filled the view, its swirling clouds and famous red spot clearly visible. "I've been thinking about that first day," Marcus said as they sat together, "when we were removed from the ship." "That seems so long ago now," Maya replied. Marcus nodded. "I was so angry then, but now I wonder if it wasn't somehow necessary. If things had gone smoothly, we might never have seen the need for change." "You turned a negative into a positive," Elijah said. "That's what you always taught us to do." Zoe raised her glass in a toast. "To unexpected beginnings." As they clinked their glasses together, Marcus looked at his family with deep contentment. They had faced discrimination and turned it into opportunity. They had used their position and resources to open doors for others. And in doing so, they had changed not just an airline company, but the future of space travel itself. Outside the window, the Unity gleamed in Jupiter's reflected light, a symbol of how far they had come and how much further humanity could go when everyone was welcome among the stars.